All right, welcome everybody to this episode of O365A. On tonight's episode, we'll be talking contact centers with Computer Talk. And with us today, we have Chris Bardon, who's the chief pinball wizard. I mean, chief software architect from Computer Talk. So welcome, Chris. I know we had you on the show, I think it was about like 3 years ago. So what we wanted to do tonight was talk about what's going on with Computer Talk and specifically your contact center ICE product. And I know you have some things to talk about in terms of Azure Communication Services and AI and power models and a whole bunch of things. So what's new and exciting at Computer Talk and with the ICE product?
Well, thanks, guys. Yeah, it has been a couple of years. I think last time we talked, yeah, it was kind of there were three models that Microsoft had kind of laid out. There was a Connect model, which was can you nail up a call with direct routing, and then there was Extend, which is well, can you do that plus have some extension into the Teams client, and then Power was always this sort of nebulous thing that was going to be later, and 3 years later, it's still like Power is still kind of sitting in that later column. But we're still in the first two boxes, so direct routing is a big, still a big deal for us. We have a lot of customers who come to us because we can land their calls in Teams and we can land their chats in Teams actually is the other reason. So if you want to live in Teams, we got you covered, right? And then there's the extend model where now we're starting to look at we've got the application that sits in Teams. So if people want to have their full agent experience be a bot in Teams, they can do that. But on the power front, yeah, that's where Azure Communication Services comes in. And what's cool about ACS, so ACS is really, we've been working with the product group there on ACS for quite a while. I actually remember being at a build one year where kind of had this meeting with some Azure guys saying, hey, we're thinking about building this communication services thing. They're basically looking at Twilio, right? And they're saying, well, here's what Twilio is doing. Can we do something similar in Azure? And I think I said, hey, have you talked to those guys over there working on the graph calling APIs? You guys should really, be in sync on this. But what happened eventually was they built ACS as a sort of API layer on top of the Teams core. So there's the core of Teams is this set of microservices. There's a couple of conference talks that are really great at walking through this, but it's basically headless Teams. So ACS gives you Teams without identity, but you have access to things like calling and meetings and chat and all this, all the good stuff. So we took that and kind of along with what the team provided is they gave you SDKs. There's a web SDK and a Windows SDK and mobile SDKs that give you all the calling library stuff. So what we did with that is we took and we built a phone into our agent desktop. So we've always had this agent desktop tool that agents can run to handle remote call control from Teams. And so now we have the option to say, well, you can handle your calls in Teams, you can handle your calls on any DID, and now you can handle calls natively inside of ICE using ICE Phone, which is our ACS implementation, and that's on the desktop clients, the web client, and yeah, what that gives us is it's just for those customers that want the all-in-one experience where it's like everything is just it's a single app. We control the endpoint now. We can give them that. We can do it as consumption billing. And when you control the endpoint, you can start doing some cool stuff. Like I'll give you an example. Like we have customers who we have a feature in contact center. It's called it's auto answer, right? So an agent will be like sitting there off hook. They'll be ready for their next call, and the call will just kind of beep into their headset. But with Teams, we still need to say like, okay, we still need to connect your Teams endpoint. So like your Teams phone will ring and you have to pick that up at least once. We can keep it, keep that call going through the day, but you still have to pick up that phone once. When you control the endpoint, you can control that. So we can say, no, if you're cool with it, we can just, send calls straight into your, headset. So it means you can save a few seconds here and there and do some interesting stuff. So yeah, ACS has been really a focus in the last couple of years. So where that's gone is we've got just the full soft phone experience for calling for agents built into the tooling. It's also the whole chat stack. We refactored that. So again, in addition to handling the option for agents to handle their chats in Teams, they can handle them in direct in IcePhone now using ACS chat. And what's cool about that is a lot of customers there's this idea that they want, you want all your communication in Teams, right? You got your calls in Teams, you got your chats in Teams, but then what you start finding is all the chat threads that are piling up that are, support chats are getting interleaved with your, regular day-to-day work stuff. So in order to get that persona separation, lets you have, now I can have my, my corporate persona over here and my agent persona over here, and everything, everything is sort of separate. And again, it also means that now that we control the endpoint, we can do some cool stuff. Like, the experience for inserting, automated and suggested responses is a little better. So, we can automatically suggest like, hey, you might want to say, reply with this. And we could do that a lot easier in iPhone than we can in Teams, because, you're not trying to mash something into the Teams client, or, we actually did it with Teams in the back end. But yeah, so it's all of that. And then that also extends to the anonymous user endpoint. So like your web chat client and, those mobile SDKs I mentioned, that's where now we can have customers that say, hey, I want to embed my contact center, endpoints into my mobile app. So if you're a bank, imagine, think of, someone as a bank who wants to be able to say, I want to click the call button from within my app where you're already authenticated and we already know what you're looking at. I can connect you, pass that context in, and have this sort of captive portal experience where everything is secure, everything is, and everything is fast, and I can skip, because you're already authenticated through the app, I can skip, I can skip the preamble and just get you straight to who you need to get to. So it's, it's letting us sort of rethink that experience end to end. So yeah, that's been kind of the biggest, some of the biggest changes in the past couple of years.
I
When
was
you're
going to say,
taking,
it seems. Oh,
go ahead.
sorry. It seems to me that the integration with ACS just allows your contact center to be integrated with whatever application speaks whatever endpoint,
Mhm.
right? Like,
Yeah, and I mean that's something that's kind of been our strong suit all along, right? Is like, we kind of live in the complex at Computer Talk. Typically contact center isn't really box software. It's not something like people don't go buy a contact center and just deploy it and not configure it, right? There's always integration with your data. There's always application flows that you got to think about. When someone calls that 800 number, what do you want them to do? Like, what do you want that experience to be? How do you want to build that? Get them from A to B, and then how do you figure out after the fact whether you've done that right? Is sort of closing the loop on it. So there's getting people where they need to be, and then the analytics that go after it, as well as making sure that everything in the middle is as efficient as possible. So yeah, ACS is definitely helping in that way. And then I guess the other thing to point out there is what's interesting with ACS and iPhone that we've done is it's complementary to what we've already got. Like, this is not saying, hey, this is the only way to go now. If people want to, a lot of customers still want to use Teams, and that's cool. So if you want to use Teams as your primary endpoint, you can, but use iPhone as a backup. So if Teams ever goes down because Entra ID isn't authenticating in your region, well, hey, you can flip that over to ACS and still be taking calls. And in the event that both go down, hey, you could flip that over to being able to handle calls on your cell phone if you need to. Like, it's about offering that choice. And what's cool is that it's not only choice for our customers as a whole, like an individual customer org, but it's per agent. Right. So I can have a PSTN caller and an ACS agent, and it being monitored by a team supervisor, and it all just works. Right. And I can bring I can bring them all into a 3-party conference if I have to. And it's got this whole idea of these heterogeneous endpoints, it all just works inside of ICE.
When you're using like the ICE phone, do you have to like update presence in the agent's kind of Teams clients if they're in calls? Like, how do you handle when they are having the two separate personas?
Well, you can, and so that actually does work pretty well. So we can update, we can update presence based on condition of one endpoint or the other. Typically, what we do for a lot of customers, we'll sync from Teams into ICE. So it's hey, if I'm in a meeting over here, I don't want to be getting queued calls, so I can do that. Going the other way, yeah, it's something you can do if you want. Like if you want to report yourself as like, don't bug me, I'm on a support call. That's doable too. And but again, no two customers seem to want to do it exactly the same way, which is why it's always a configured thing. So yeah, that's and you've also got the option like with ACS, like it's funny, Microsoft offers an option where you can auth the ACS using a team's identity. And that's about the only feature it gives you, is it gives you that unified presence. The one thing it doesn't cover is billing. So, ACS, unfortunately, ACS right now, and if anyone from Microsoft is listening, you should change this. Is if you author the team's identity, you should be able to use the E5 cal that they already have, and consume those minutes as opposed to paying for call minutes just because you're using a custom client. So,
because it's coming through the ACS consumption versus the end user. Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah, the identity is just what's cool about ACS is you could spin up ephemeral identities, right? So you don't need, if you've got an anonymous user coming in and they need to make a call, then it's just I can make an identity for that guy and they can make a call. It's great. It's all consumption, so it's not like I have to allocate a cal. But then authing with Teams, it's still billing per minute. So. But that's the model we've got right now. So we've got a couple of different models with that. We can do it straight consumption. We've got a model where we bake it into pricing. We've got a model where we bake it in. It's less if it's used as a backup, but it's a different model than what your typical, like, I'm going to buy a dedicated trunk for every agent, let's say. But what it lets you do is it lets you have those, that burst capacity if you need it, let's say, and you want to go with kind of variable numbers. It's just a different way to look at what you're using.
With the ACS side, sorry, with the, like, how are you routing the calls into ACS? Is it like through kind of like direct routing to ACS?
Mhm.
Is it like you can bypass the PSTN side and talk directly to ACS through APIs? Like, how does that all work?
So there's two. So we're using a couple of different things. So yeah, our web apps are using the JavaScript and TypeScript SDKs directly. So that's talking straight to ACS. Our backend servers use the .NET calling SDKs, and then we're routing calls in and out through direct routing. So, what we actually did is our ACS model and our direct routing model are nearly identical. There's a little bit of trickery we did in getting the basically that initial agent connection that we I think I mentioned like an off-hook call before, and that's the whole idea where we need to call you before we connect you to a caller. So there's some connection gymnastics that happens with us doing an inbound call from the ICE phone client as opposed to us going outbound, but the end result is the same. Like we are leveraging direct routing for ACS, and that what's nice about that is it works almost identically to what Teams has. So same SBC support pretty much. So we've got all that squared away. So it was really just a matter of getting the calling endpoints up.
Just as a quick follow up to that, so if a customer already has like 1,000 DIDs on their own direct routing, are they having to move that to you, or how do you plug?
Well, they don't have to. So there's actually an interesting feature. So one of the things we have here is, so if you're talking about like inbound numbers, like inbound contact center numbers, one of the things that we've done, actually this is something that's gotten a lot more popular in the last couple of years, is we actually allow customers to bring their own telephony through Microsoft to us. So what happens is a customer might have service numbers through Microsoft, they might have operator connect numbers, they may have DR numbers that they own, that they want to kind of maintain, but they want to point those at their contact center. So what they do is we just define, we've got a like a global application for, this is actually using the graph calling SDK, but there's some talk about moving that to ACS call automation later. But what it is, it's a graph calling application. Point those DIDs assign them to that app, and then that will redirect into us. So it does inbound and outbound calling through sort of this two-headed direct routing. So one of those DIDs would come in from a carrier on the direct routing SBC through the Microsoft infrastructure into our SBC and then into the contact center. So it's a really easy way to manage telephony coming in like that. And like I said, it works with we're doing it actually with a couple of the OC partners now, and getting to be doing, I think every week I see new new numbers going in there. So it's got to be more popular.
Oh, that's cool. Thank you. Now I think Cab had a question.
Yeah. So I was just trying to ask Chris, given we're in the, I don't want to call it era, but we're like in the, the really important time in I guess in terms of AI and all these different things that are happening. What different things have or will you guys implement the rest of the ice around AI and integrating with large language models? And are you going to be hosting them or using something side? And is there any integrations with Copilot as well? So just had some questions around that.
Oh, wow. Okay. There's I guess how long you got for an answer here? Okay.
Yeah.
Let's go. So yeah, I mean AI, it's nothing new to us, right? Like the I in ICE stands for intelligent. Contact center's really kind of been at the front of AI for a long time. Everything from text to speech and speech rec, natural language understanding. Like we've been doing this for a long time. Now, what changed a couple of years back is large language models got good. In some ways, like one of the ways I like to explain it is if you've ever worked at speech rec, like back in the day when you wrote a speech rec application, you had to define like a fairly rigid grammar about like I want to be able to recognize, if you're going to order pizza as a large, medium, small. So you're going to say this, and I'm going to I've got a slot here, and I'm going to detect one of these words, and here's 4 or 5 different ways I might be able to say that. But it was a fairly prescriptive grammar. The difference now is it's and you kind of went from that to like dictation grammars, which we're saying I could say whatever I want and it's just going to transcribe. And one of the things like LLMs, it almost takes like the old intent model where I had to like model, here's the NLU intents I want to get. Now it's generic in the intent detection category. So, we've been messing around with LLMs for a couple of years now. So a couple of things we're doing. So actually, we've got a release coming out in about a month here. The last of the code is just getting polished up. We got things going through test, starting to show it to some customers. But what we've done is sort of there's two ends of what we've done with this. So the first one is we've surfaced actually all of the Azure OpenAI services in our call flow designer. So within an application, like building a calling bot or a chat bot or something like IVR even, you can start leveraging Azure OpenAI. So it's things like if you're building a chat bot where you want to go and look up a support case, right? You can get your case number off of something, but then maybe I want to go back and look at all the support records and say, give me a summary of what the status of this case is. And now I could spit that back to the caller and say, well, yeah, here's the status of things. What do you need to do? I can use it as a generic intent recognizer. So I can say, okay, do they want to, does this person want to talk to an agent? Are they getting more and more upset? And what's cool about that is you can start prompting that in what looks very much like natural language. I mean, it's prompt language, so there's a bit of finessing to that, but it's easier than it was to do the old school NLU stuff. So, being able to surface this, and one of the things that also includes, we've implemented sort of our own retrieval augmentation pipeline for that. So, for small scale knowledge bases, up to a couple 100,000 documents, we can do that all natively on in ICE for managing that data. You can start doing things like I can query over all your your product manuals or your facts, or start answering questions, building like Q&A bots. And it's interesting. We actually built this. Been working on this for about a year now. Kind of tweaking the tooling. We're using it to help answer RFPs now. So we actually trained this on that document set. We're also using it to build our, for our documentation. So there's a couple of different tools in there, and then you can actually go one step further and you can build, there's the custom Copilot stuff that Microsoft has done. Custom Copilots are actually just Power Virtual Agents under the hood, which are bots, which we could already support. So, now if you want to build a custom Copilot on the Microsoft stack, you can put that in front of your contact center too. So there's a few different things you can do that's even before you talk to an agent. On the other end of it, what we've done is, we implemented call transcription using Azure a while back. So, you can already take all of your call recordings and say, I'm going to ship these up to Azure. I'm going to transcribe them. That's actually gotten significantly cheaper in the past couple of years. They were $1 an hour, then they were 35 cents an hour. I think they're down to 18 cents an hour as their cost. So that the cost on that has dropped dramatically over the last little while. But the LLM twist on that is we're now allowing LLM-based jobs to run on those transcripts after they're finished. So, the obvious use case that we implemented out of the box is summarization. So again, I could take a 45-minute call transcript and break it down to 3 sentences, and surface that as a as a searchable thing. That's kind of table stakes for this. But the twist we put on it is we've let those jobs now be customizable. So what it turns out LLMs do really well is they understand language as well as generate it. So again, if I say, take this call transcript and I want you to identify, give me the list of the top 5 issues they talked about on this call, list any action items you saw, extract any ticket numbers you found, and by the way, do it all in, answer all of that in this JSON format. That's one LLM turn, and it does it pretty well. And so now that becomes structured data that exists on top of your call. So now what we've got is this idea of an extensible contact metadata record that you can populate using large language models. So it's really like it's speech analytics for everyone. If you go back and look, if you look at anybody who's in the analytics space, a lot of it is based on, some data science and you're counting words, but some of them, when you get down to it, it's really looking at did they say these 5 words? Whereas now I'm saying I want evaluate this transcript holistically, OpenAI, and give me a result on that. So that's sort of where we're doing things on our own. The Copilot side of it is interesting. So today, if you've got M365 Copilot and you're using ICE, well, guess what? You can use Copilot on your ICE calls. So your contact center agents can hit that Copilot button, get a live transcript of their call in real time, and start asking questions about it while they're in Teams. That's one of the advantages of using Teams for your contact center is you get some of these features will come along for free. And again, if you want to do anything else with that, we're looking into some other things around Copilot extensibility. That's sort of a little further down the road, but like those. The generative AI features, the ones I talked about, those are going to be available very, very soon. And I got to say, this is just the start of what we're doing here. So I think it's getting to be pretty cool.
Yeah, no, it seems exciting. Like it's just around, getting out of that custom query kind of thing, for like the supervisor and manager sort of thing. Like even you guys having to do it and now putting the power into them where they can create or ask all these questions and have all this data sort of returned back to them in natural language, which is huge.
What's cool about it too is we built it so that you can experiment with it, right? So an admin can go in and say, okay, what do I want to know? Are my customers calling in about this, about a specific product? I had a call this morning about a defect with a product. How many of those am I getting? And you can literally just ask that question, say, okay, I want to try it against a couple calls. Oh, maybe I want to tweak the prompt. Like, no, they're actually talking about, Model A, not Model B. Get more specific. And then once you start getting the results you want after a few trials, that's when you flip it on and say, okay, now I want to run this for everything. And maybe I want to go back in time. Maybe I just want to go do it running forward. Because let's face it, running queries against LLMs gets expensive if you do it a lot. Right. But if you're smart about it and you're saying, well, I'm going to do, for every call transcript, I'm going to do like 2 or 3 LLM operations, generate the data, but then I can query it forever. Right. That's where it gets to be a lot more manageable. And it's cool because the barrier to entry for it is pretty low. You can try it out really easily and find out what you want. Because we tend to find that in the analytics space, like, a lot of analytics suites will give you, thousands and thousands of data points, and usually contact center people want to know 5 things. There'll be a few questions they know right away. There'll be 1 or 2 more that come up, but there are certain questions they want to answer, like, what would these people answer on a CSAT? Like, here's a simulator that I'm going to say, well, okay, I'm going to calculate a virtual CSAT for this, or maybe I want to know, like, what just for all of my calls, it's literally just what are the action items, like that neat feature you get in Teams now with the recaps, like that for all of your contact center interactions. And then what's actually really cool with that is because we're a platform, I define the job that says I want to extract all the action items. Then what I can do after that is I can say, once you've run that job, run this other job that runs a workflow that's going to go look at those action items, parse out whether anything has a date on it, and now I'm going to put it on somebody's calendar to go follow up on. So you can see how this starts getting deeper and deeper when you start looking at your process and putting kind of this programmable AI into the mix and saying, well, I'm going to apply some human ingenuity to the artificial intelligence and say, well, I'm going to use the AI to extract what I need, and then say, well, how does that build into my process? Right. So it's neat stuff.
What are your thoughts on the recent announcement about Microsoft Dynamics Contact Center? It's kind of a strange name because there's nothing to do with Dynamics, but they kind of just threw it under that umbrella.
They did. Well, I mean, it kind of joins, what was it, the Microsoft Dynamics Omnichannel Contact Center and the Microsoft calling queues and the new calling queues thing in Teams that they announced. I mean, look, it's interesting. They're going all in with Copilot at the front, and I think we've all seen chatbots misbehave. So there's definitely some trepidation on, we the way we've approached it is we've said, look, we think you should look at keeping a human in the loop with your generative AI stuff. That's why we're really focusing on the analytics side, agent assist side, and then being able to do some generative content that you're going to be able to send out to customers. I mean, if you want to take and build a nice system where you front your entire ACD with a chat GPT, like, you can do it, but you have to, it's a non-deterministic model, right? So your responses may not be exactly what you expect. I like I said, it's not the first time Microsoft has come into this space. I mean, it's very much a point in time thing. So as of June 4th, 2024, we'll see what happens. I don't know of anyone who's successfully deployed the existing Dynamics Omnichannel. So yeah, I'm not losing any sleep on them yet.
Nice.
All right. Well, Chris, that was fantastic. And I was just looking at our list of questions and topics, and I think you nailed all of them. So really appreciate the time and the insight. It's I think it really is an exciting time to be part of the contact center community, because with AI, things like ACS, you're, as you said, you're really extending the contact center into the workflow of the business, which is fantastic. Yeah,
think about the contact center tends to be like, for a lot of businesses. I know a lot of our customers, that's their main point of contact with their customers. They get a lot of, you're in finance, you're in government, you're in retail, whatever. Like the contact center is a conduit for them talking to their customers, and there's a lot of data there. Right. This is their customers talking directly to them, telling them what they need. Either it's transactional or it's support or whatever. So the more you can A, streamline that, and B, learn from it, the better. There's
absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, very good. Well, thanks again, Chris. And I do want to get my hands on one of your pinball machines one of these days. So it looks good.
Next time you're in Toronto.
All right.
All right.
All right. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.